AFS Intercultural Programs, as we know it today, is a global leader in international education. Each year, AFS around the world provides immersive cultural exchange experiences to nearly 13,000 high school students and young adults with the help of more than 43,000 dedicated volunteers. For close to 70 years, these intercultural exchanges have fostered peace and cross-cultural understanding in communities around the world. Yet the organization that gave rise to AFS Intercultural Programs, a volunteer World War I and II ambulance and camion corps known as the American Field Service, began when peace and understanding had been left aside. It was wartime in Europe, and the civilian-run American Hospital of Paris had opened a military hospital to treat wounded soldiers from the battlefront. One of the hospital's dedicated ambulance drivers was American A. Pyatt Andrew, a former director of the United States Mint and assistant professor of economics at Harvard University. In 1915, Andrew, now Inspector General of the hospital's Transportation Committee, successfully negotiated with the French Army to send ambulances closer to the front lines of battle. These ambulance units became known as the American Ambulance Field Service. In 1916, A. Pyatt Andrew broke away from the American Ambulance Hospital and created an independent American Ambulance Field Service headquartered in the heart of Paris. As the war progressed, however, a camion service was added to help transport munitions and supplies, and the Corps became known as simply American Field Service. The organization was eventually absorbed into the ranks of the U.S. military after the U.S. entered the war in 1917. In 1920, 3 years after the war ended, the AFS Association was established to coordinate reunions among former members of the American Field Service, as well as to facilitate study abroad fellowships for French and American graduate students. The primary aim of these fellowships was to continue cultivating peaceful ties between the United States and France during the post-war period. When World War II broke out, the American Field Service was reactivated as an ambulance corps under the leadership of Director General Stephen Galati. Galati had taken over the AFS Association after AFS founder A. Pyatt Andrew's death in 1936. The American Field Service served in France until June of 1940, and then allied itself with the British Army in 1941. As the war progressed, its volunteer drivers helped transport wounded from both sides, aiding soldiers from Great Britain, France, Poland, Australia, New Zealand, India, North Africa, Italy, Germany, and Burma. In 1945, as the war came to a close and the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp was liberated by British forces, a contingent of American Field Service ambulance drivers was called in to help evacuate more than 11,000 people from the camp. By the end of World War II, the 2,196 ambulance drivers had carried more than 700,000 wounded combatants from both sides of the war. After World War II ended, the fate of the American Field Service remained in the balance. Its services were no longer needed on the battlefield, but its members were determined to keep alive the spirit of volunteerism that drove the organization through its first 3 decades. In 1946, Stephen Galati and American Field Service drivers from both world wars assembled in New York City to discuss the organization's future. They pledged to continue the AFS tradition of volunteer service and work to foster friendship among nations. They felt this could best be achieved through intercultural exchanges that helped young people from diverse backgrounds understand one another better. In 1947, the first group of European high school students arrived in the U.S. on scholarships. That following summer, 29 college and high school students embarked on a bus trip across America to see the country and spark U.S. citizens' interest in hosting foreign students and supporting student exchange. By 1950, exchange opportunities for U.S. students were made available thanks to the efforts of AFS exchange returnees who worked to establish programs in their home countries. AFS continued to grow, and by 1964, more than 20,000 students had participated in AFS exchanges. U.S. presidents, who had been meeting with AFS exchange participants since the 1950s, continued to invite the students to the White House and lauded the organization for its contributions to U.S. public diplomacy efforts. Today, AFS is one of the largest volunteer-based organizations of its kind in the world. Beginning in 2014, 100 years after A. Piet Andrew traveled to France to volunteer as an ambulance driver, we are celebrating the incredible history of the organization and its remarkable transition through the decades. AFS USA is one of the AFS network's largest partners. As it enters its second century, we drive this legacy forward to future generations of AFSers. Through intercultural exchange, an enduring commitment to volunteerism, and exciting new educational initiatives for groups of all ages, AFS USA will continue to inspire people to become the kind of global citizens that the world needs.
Hi and Assalamualaikum and welcome everyone to MCSC's PR Shares. This will be the third and final series of MCSC's PR Shares, and I will be your moderator for today, AQMAL NIZAM bin MAZLAN, and joining us will be Puan KHALILAH Datuk Muhammad TALHA. She is the chair of YAYASAN AFS ANTARABUDAYA Malaysia. Welcome, let's welcome Puan Kelly. Let's everyone give her a warm welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
All right. So today, Puan Kelly, we're going to talk about how PR works, the ins and outs of PR in NGOs. So hope you're doing well on this fine evening. But firstly, I would just like to say thank you for joining MCSC and spending your time with us today. I hope you're doing very well with us, UiTM Rembau students. If this was done in real life, I would very much prefer if I were to see you in real life.
Yeah, I would also prefer to see everyone here rather than just see
That's
the
like
comment
many
section.
viewers here. Yes, very excited to hear about all the things that you're going to share with us today. So, Puan Kelly, as we all watched the video previously, for those of you who just entered, we would like to know a bit about Puan Kelly's background and tell us some of the key achievements that you've achieved in your life.
Okay, first I would like to say thank you for having me here. I'm glad to be last, but certainly not least in your series of talks. Just to let you know, everyone, that I was born in an age where tablet was what Moses brought down from the mountain, with the 10 commandments. And what the doctor prescribed for you if you're sick, those are tablets. And where mouse is a rodent, okay, not this. So in other words, I'm fairly ancient, but I think well preserved. Okay, I was actually schooled in the English medium. I was mainly in missionary schools, in the Convent of the Holy Infant Jesus in Klang and Seremban, and Methodist Girls' School, and later King George V. So yeah, I was in classrooms where you had crosses in them, and it was no big deal. But I'm sure it will give fits to a lot of holier than thou people today. But in those days, it was just taken as something normal, and the nuns did instill discipline in all of us, discipline, sense of responsibility, and acceptance and tolerance. So there are good things to be talked about on these missionary schools. Anyway, when I was in Form 4, I think I applied for an AFS scholarship. I got a partial scholarship, and I went on the first program. It was called multinational program, because before this, all exchanges were between this country and the United States. So I was on the first MNP program, and I went to Denmark. Okay, the land of fairy tales. I hope everyone knows why is it called land of fairy tales. Do you, Akmal?
Land of fairy tales.
Yes.
You can please enlighten me.
See, because Hans Christian Andersen, who wrote a lot of those fairy tales, he is actually a Dane, so he hails from Denmark. So that's why we call Land of Fairy Tales. Yeah, if you've seen The Little Mermaid, yeah, that's one of the stories that he wrote. Yeah. So,
all right.
Anyway, the AFS experience was for 1 year. I was immersed in that culture, and it certainly changed my life. I returned after 1 year and enrolled, did my HSC, and was accepted into UiTM to do political science and mass communications. Now, if you think that living in a foreign country like Denmark, with a different culture, different language, different foods was daunting, I can tell you that entering UiTM is equally daunting, because I've been in the English medium all the while, and then suddenly everything in UiTM is
Melayu kan?
Yeah, so I had some difficulty to express myself. So, and it didn't help that my political science lecturer was an Australian called Dr. Harold Crouch, but he spoke perfect bahasa Indonesia. He would say things like, "Intipati daripada perbincangan tadi adalah." So, and then, oh my gosh. So you have in tutorials, especially you have to speak up. So it was a bit of a daunting experience for me, as I said. But anyway, after I graduated, I worked in the UiTM Chancellery Division for 1 year. Then I went on to join a PR agency, Eric White Associates, for 1 year. And after that, United Motorworks Berhad here in Shah Alam. Also for 1 year, yes, I was an unrepentant job hopper at that time. But I finally grounded myself, shall we say, when I was accepted into Malaysia Airlines. So I joined at that time as a controller. And then over the years, I rose in rank, of course. And my job was to look after the internal publication for staff, Berita Mas, and as well as the in-flight magazine, Wings of Gold at the time. Later it became Going Places. Yeah.
The editor for the magazine.
Yeah.
I see.
And after that, I stayed 12 years with MAS before I was enticed to join Plus. So from the air to the ground. So now I'm with Plus Expressways, and I was there until 2015 when I retired. But since 2009, I was with AFS Malaysia, because I'm what you call a returnee. Once you've been on the program, you come back, you're called a returnee, the alumni. So I was volunteering for AFS since 2009, or maybe even earlier, but on the board since then. And but upon retirement, I could devote more time and effort to AFS. Yes.
I see. So you've been with AFS quite some time now, even without even while working a permanent job. Yeah.
Yep. But you heard just now in the video, AFS is an organization based on volunteers. So most of us are volunteers, really. The board is comprised of volunteers. Yeah.
I see. So actually you've mentioned about your working experience in Plus and your working experience in MES and now being the chair of AFS. So how do you actually involve yourself in PR and how did it start in the first place? Because you mentioned in UKM you took MESCOM as your minor, right?
Minor, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
political science was your major. What enticed you to get into PR?
Well, it certainly was by chance, not by design. As you mentioned, my major was in political science because it was a new thing. It sounded fancy, so I wanted to try something new. But I did a minor in mass communications. But after graduating, all the jobs that were available, I mean, I poured through the newspapers and everything. Most of the jobs available wanted mass communications background. So there was one for press secretary actually to the Ministry of Information. So that would have given some credibility to my political science thing,
Right.
my political science degree. But unfortunately, during the interview, I committed what you can say a cardinal sin. During the mid-interview, I'm talking to the two interviewers. I crossed my legs casually. And then one of the interviewers took that to, he was like very pissed off. He said, "You are not supposed to cross your legs during an interview." So I said, "Oh, okay." So I think because of that, he struck me out as a potential candidate, and I never got to be in the in the political line. And I got an offer from UKM, so I just joined the Chancellery Division, basically writing speeches in English for the Vice Chancellor, managing visitors. We were doing, the convocation ceremony, those kind of things. Yeah.
Right. A lot of this writing, I'm sure you're very, very good at throughout the years.
Yeah.
So
Well, you can see that.
this accidental chance brought you to AFS and brought to you becoming the chair of Yayasan AFS twice now. So can you do you mind telling us about Yayasan AFS Antarabudaya Malaysia and some of the causes it's fighting for?
Yeah, but before that, I just want to give a shout out to Erin Iman Suraya and Faikah Nur Atira. Yay, convent gang.
Yes, welcome.
Convent in the house. Okay.
We have a few UiTM Rembau students from convent also.
Oh, wonderful. Our principal in Seremban was called Sister Monica. So whenever she came round, we would sing that song, here she comes now, Moni, Moni. But you're like millennials, you don't know that song probably. Okay,
most
anyway.
Probably not. Maybe convent kids know.
Okay, but back to your question. Yes, what AFS is all about and what cause is AFS involved in. All right, I think most of you saw the video just now. The elevator pitch, I would say, for AFS is that AFS was born from two world wars, in 1914, the First World War, and continued with through the Second World War. So it was a corps of ambulance drivers, and most of these were volunteers. And they were from university students, maybe about your age, 18, 19, who had ideals, who wanted to see their dreams for a peaceful world come true. So when they went to do their bit for the war effort, they saw that the bloodshed and all was unnecessary. So after the two world wars ended, that's when they got together and said, we should continue this. Let's build a peaceful and just world by having student exchanges. So we transformed from a wartime humanitarian aid organization into a groundbreaking international secondary school exchange, volunteer and intercultural learning organization. So AFS partners, sprang up very quickly. And in Malaysia, we started actually in 1958, and so we've been around 62 years now. And our course,
basically.
Yeah, exactly. And our courses are very simple to help build a just and more peaceful world by promoting understanding among cultures. Yeah, that's why we have the student exchanges where the student is embedded in that culture for a period of time, because that's the best way to understand people, understand their culture, have deep and profound insight into the languages,
Right,
all
the
aspects
food
of the
they
culture.
eat. Mm.
Yes, not just what's on top of the iceberg. You see the traditional clothes, the food they eat, but also the values that are underneath the surface of the water, so to speak.
All right.
So we have our philosophy of learning to live together is dedicated to building an inclusive community. Actually, we want global citizens, we want change makers, and we want to build bridges among cultures.
Mm.
Yeah. So
So,
that's it. The elevator
all
pitch for AFS.
yeah, I'm sure. I know EFS gives also scholarship incentives. Like for Malaysia, it's to Japan and US, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, it's very interesting that how EFS would incorporate and like basically sulam how people from Malaysia and other cultures, how we can
Yeah.
learn more about each other.
Yes. That's the
Mm.
best way to understand. There was a song, "To know Malaysia is to love Malaysia." So if you
Yeah.
don't know Malaysia, how are you going to understand, how we live? And you think of a country, you think of its people. Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
this is how we do it.
For a better tomorrow.
Yes.
All right. So next we'll move on to the next question. Is everyone still in the chat? Everyone still okay? Hope everyone is enjoying so far.
Yes.
Uh,
Nur, Shuha, Nafisa is also a convenite. Yeah. Different
oh,
stage.
I see.
It doesn't matter.
Very
It's
nice,
a
very nice of you to invite your friends. Puan Kelly, you can ask them to follow MCSC Rembau on Instagram and also YouTube. You can check it
Okay.
out.
Yes.
Free plug. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our next question. So I would like to ask. Previously, you've worked in Plus, right, as general manager in strategic comms. So I'm sure we would like to know what is like the difference of PR in a strategic environment and in a corporate environment versus a non-profit voluntary environment. What are the difference of the angle in PR?
Okay. Well, you all know already that public relations is the practice of managing communications or messages between an organization and its publics. So, in any organization, you can use PR tools and techniques to communicate effectively, with your stakeholders, your customers, your employees, your suppliers, your investors, and the community at large. So, in a corporate company like Plus and also MAS, PR can help businesses market their products, their facilities, their services, and influence attitudes toward the company. So you can maybe attract investors by describing your growth opportunities, your new business plans, new business wins. You can help build positive attitudes or good reputation by constantly engaging in dialogue with your various stakeholders. So similarly, in a non-profit organization, we do that too. Like in AFS, the PR side, we provide support to create new relationships, build new relationships, maintain existing ones as well, meet fundraising targets, because an NGO relies on funds from external sources. So we have to develop awareness about our mission, our vision, and also we do this in order to get the buy-in from both the public as well as the private sectors and the communities around us. Yeah, so we want to build our volunteer base as well.
So the key is to build the base of voluntary people who would like to work
Yes,
for AFS, right?
yes.
Volunteer
So
for AFS, not work for AFS.
yes, and that's why I welcome this opportunity, because all of you are young, you're energetic, very gung ho. So all of you can become volunteers of AFS.
Yeah, I hope all of you out there are taking notes, because what Puan Kelly is going to share today might help us in the future. Mana tahu dapat scholarship, we never know.
Yes.
So
You can
okay, so
also help. Go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, man. Sorry, Puan. All
Sorry,
right, so we proceed to the next question. So as we all know, AFS is an NGO that hosts both inbound and outbound international students. Puan Kelly, you yourself have encountered language barrier or like crisis communication. So how do you handle this situation with non-native English-speaking countries, like from the Latin America or European countries. How did your time in AFS, how do you handle this situation?
Okay, as I mentioned, and maybe you saw through the video, AFS has partner in our network. We have partners around the world. We have affiliates around the world in more than 100 countries, in fact. So when there is a crisis in that country involving our participants or our volunteers, the network partner would have the prerogative and responsibility to communicate to stakeholders, whether they are the volunteers, the host families, the host schools, the local governments or authorities, and even the media if necessary. Some examples come to mind. You remember the Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines in 2013?
Yeah.
So it was, I think, in central Philippines, and there were a few AFS students hosted there, so they were caught in that. So evacuation and all communications were arranged by AFS Philippines. Similarly, the recent pandemic, COVID-19, we had students all over already, but by then, borders started closing one by one. So it is up to each partner country to organize. You have your own crisis centers, and you manage and organize the repatriation of the students back to their home countries. But closer to home, when we talk about crisis in AFS and crisis in PLUS or MAS, totally different, kan? The scale is different.
Yes, correct.
So in AFS, was our minor crises lah, we like to say. Whenever we have like students who have difficulty settling in, they are not adapting as well, we have liaison persons for them. But when they are truly not able to, that's when we call in our troops, those returnees who have been to Latin American countries. They can speak Spanish. So they will help in trying to adapt, provide some sort of comfort to these students.
Right.
And similarly, those from Japan, so we'll call the returnees from Japan to help out, and other countries around the world. If it's Scandinavia or Greenland, then it's me.
I see. So you Puan Kelly, I heard you are very fluent in speaking Danish.
Fluent, I can get by because over the years you lose. You have to practice, a language. But I'm still in touch with my Danish family. They still write to me in Danish. Wow. And I reply to them in Danish. When my children got married, so they came over as well. So
all the way from Denmark.
Yes, so that's what we like to call the AFS effects. The bonds, the bonds, the ties that you make with your host family, your friends over there, it doesn't end with just that 1 year. It goes beyond. So that's how we maintain the relationship.
You become almost a family friend, almost a family.
Yes.
Family, basically family.
Yep. So you call your host family, your mom and dad. My Danish father was Far, and Danish mother was More, and we had Lassie the dog.
Lassie the dog.
And then I had two Danish brothers, and I have Mayana as my sister. Until now, she's still my sister.
It's very, very, very heartwarming to see how AFS can build these relationships that's prolonged for many, many years. Yes. It's very, and also how you or other volunteers who would return back to AFS to teach the newer generation, very serving the cause of AFS.
Yes, it is.
Very nice. All right.
That's why we want to have more people in AFS.
Exactly. All right. We're talking about AFS. How it's AFS is an international company, and we would like to know, where does the main decision making power come from? Does it come from the national office here in PJ or the international office in New York?
Okay. I must state here that each AFS national organization is autonomous. It can run its own operations. It's a separate legal entity. So even the name is left to the partner countries to decide on. In Italy, it's called AFS Intercultural. In Indonesia, it's called Bina Antarabudaya. And here in Malaysia, it is Yayasan AFS Antarabudaya Malaysia. So we are, whatever decisions we make that affects our organization, we can decide on our own. We do not have to refer to international. But I mentioned earlier also that each network partner has a board. So the board comprises volunteers who are elected in an annual general meeting every year. But we also have a small office with salaried staff who manage operations. We have about 10 or 11 in the office right now. And AFS Malaysia is a full partner. We're not a branch. We're a full partner of AFS International. We are bound by articles of partnership, among them like training, branding. So any decision, as I mentioned, affecting AFS Malaysia, we can decide on our own. But AFS International, they have a board of trustees.
Right.
And, so any decision they make will have to be done in consultation with all partners, and then only they can make a unilateral decision that affects the network. Like for instance, suspending all programs during this COVID-19 period.
I
So
see.
that can,
So usually they will pick from like one representative from each entity to come for the international AGM every year, is it?
For the we have what we called meetings. We have global conferences, and at this global conference there will be a 3-day session for 3 or 2-day session for AFSs to vote in the new board of trustees, and then we talk about our way forward, our plans for the future, that kind of thing. So yes, we do have that.
All right. So I'm sure you're very much involved because you're the chair in one of the shareholders, chair in Yayasan AFS Antarabudaya Malaysia. So we would like to learn a bit more of your role as the chair in, and what's your main role in the NGO?
Okay, like all boards, first of all, we set policies, we set strategies in line with the organization's purpose, principles, and scope of our organization. We also approve work plans, budgets. We give policy and direction and program support as well. Right now, we have 4 main committees within the board. So the committees looks after key aspects of our organization, which are programs, and then people development, because we have a volunteer base, so people development. We have a finance, legal, and administration committee, and we also have an external relations committee. External relations committee will also look into fundraising. And one of our current board members now is Dato' Yasmin Yusof. Sorry. I'm sure all of you know her, as she used to be a radio announcer, and she's also radio host, and she is also a famous MC. So,
quite famous. Yeah. I'm sure everyone knows her.
So she's heading the fundraising committee.
Oh, I see. So actually, as the chair, how close do you bring PR into decision making? Like, how close is PR in decision making?
Well, as mentioned before, PR is actually a management function. So anything that we do must take into account public perception. So we also have a close working relationship with the Ministry of Education. Yeah. So because we work in schools, we work with schools, taking students on the program. So with the MOE, definitely PR comes in very, very handy. You need to be on the good side of MOE.
Right, very. Because you have to secure an education incentive that fit for the government, because that's where we are born in Malaysia, right?
Yes, we have to earn their trust, their confidence, because we're taking kids out from school, So, but in AFS, the promise that we give is that the students will be insured, from start to finish, and they have families over there looking after these kids as their own children. So these are the assurances we can give to MOE. that the kids are well looked after.
All right. Okay. Okay. As we all know, the survival of NGOs comes from the stability of its resources or its funding. So, as a non-profit organization, what are AFS's steps to ensure its survival during crucial times like this?
Yeah, these are indeed very challenging times. I think not just
Yes.
AFS, every
Everyone.
business, every company is facing issues. So in AFS, we can no longer have physical exchanges, face-to-face exchanges. Mobility is no longer there since borders are closed, airports are closed. Everything has to be virtual for now. Yeah. So we have like classroom exchanges, we have virtual exchanges, and we like to think of it as an appetizer before the main course. So the appetizer you get to know, through online first. This is what you will be experiencing once the borders open again. Right. So, but for the moment, how we survive is we offer online intercultural learning courses. We have the basic ICL, and we have just completed training for 100 educators.
Okay.
Yeah, the educators who will be getting their global competence certificate soon. So
this is for the online.
Yeah, it's an online course, and we are happy that the Minister of Education realizes that in a globally connected world, intercultural understanding is now mission critical for the world. And what better way to start than with these educators who will be, hopefully molding future leaders. So we start with them first.
Yes, correct. I mean, that's a right step, or right stepping stone for to push the younger generation into a better generation, basically.
Yeah, through a global outlook. Yeah.
Yes, correct. So I would like to ask how does PR play a crucial role in creating a favorable climate for fundraising, because NGOs relies on funding and resources. So how does PR create a climate suitable for that?
Well, we all know that there are many charities, there are many non-profit organizations out there. They're all working for various causes, various issues, and they're all good. They're all working to get people's attentions for funding. So PR can use, perhaps you can use case studies, you can use data to show these companies how their funds are being used and how their money can make a difference in concrete terms. Yeah. So this means you maybe have to show supporters how every dollar that they put into the cause is being contributed to create an impact. Yeah, because all organizations would like to think that they're doing something good, and by supporting an NGO that can actually convince that they are doing some good, creating an impact in the world, they will buy into it. So you have to be able to demonstrate the impact clearly in quantitative and qualitative terms. It goes a long way in allowing supporters, and people to feel like they are an important part of creating meaningful change. Yeah. So they all want to feel that they are doing something positive. So it empowers them, it helps them to donate money and raise money. It raises, for the companies, it raises their reputation as well, their brand. They are now seen as a caring and effective organization doing something to make a difference in the world. So that is how we can approach these companies by saying the ROI on them in terms of impacts that they are making to the world. So you basically, in short, you just give reason to people to support your causes. You make the best of social media, to fundraise, for visibility, and also target the right media for or the right corporate organizations as well to get your funds.
Yeah, because I also think a lot of people now, the first thing if they want to know about company, they search up their social media, and that will be the first impression of how we would create an impression of whether they want to give their money to the company or not.
Yes, because their CSR is very important, corporate social
Yes.
responsibility. A lot of pension funds in the world, the Netherlands pension fund, Dr. Chen, they look to this kind of organizations to put their money in because they trust you, so they will put their money in. So that's why it's important to always have visibility and have good programs.
All right. Okay. Thank you for answering the question, Puan Kelly. I hope everyone's still going strong in the chat. I hope Puan Kelly's friends are still in here supporting Puan Kelly. Strong, going
No
strong.
questions yet. Yeah.
It's okay. After this, we'll have a Q&A session. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question will be, people will say non-profits are per se beacons of social responsibility, but there are still competition between non-profits in terms of securing resources and funding. So how do you tackle this?
Yeah, I think this is a common and perennial issue, with any organization, whether NGO or corporate or public. It's always, staff pinching or going for the racing for the same what do you call it,
Same.
donors. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter where you're non-profit or your business, is always the same. So I think the key is to communicate and live vision and mission and values. Yeah? Because if you show that, if there is buy-in, then you will get loyalty from staff and your stakeholders. They believe in you. They are also passionate about the cause too. As I mentioned, AFS is an organization built mainly of and by volunteers. So there are more than 50,000 volunteers around the world, I think. So they stay on because they believe in the message of AFS. So those who come into NGOs, not just AFS, who come into NGOs just for the financial gains, for instance, may not stay long, or they might not find the NGO work to their liking. But for those who are committed, they will stay the course. We in Malaysia itself, we have had volunteers who have been with us since since day one probably, and we have had families, host families who have hosted more than 10 students. So we have passion and we have drive within them. For those who come into NGOs for the experience, that's fine. At least you get the ilmu, you get the knowledge, and then you use this for your next stepping stone, whatever that you're doing. But at least there is that, feeling of belonging to that organization. So when you hear about AFS, that's where I first started. And I learned a lot from the organization, for instance. Yeah.
It helps you build character development in both as an individual and family.
Yes, it gives you confidence, gives you exposure. So that's fine if you want to do that. Like I said just now, I was a unrepentant job hopper kan in the beginning. So it's only because you want to get as much experience as possible in the early days.
True.
Yeah?
That's true. I mean, I think job hopping, it's just one of the many experience you experience as a worker, right? Yeah.
As long as you give your all when you are in that organization, don't just say, oh, the pay is crap, and I just want to give 20% of my time and energy. No,
exactly.
When you are in, you have to be in 100% or 110%, even better.
Yeah, that's true. We basically learn more, love what we do. Basically.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I think we're gonna head on to the last and final question from me today. So, what are some? I'm sure all of us would like to know what are some of the tips for graduates like us to join in the PR world, and what should we focus on, and how do we prepare ourselves? Do you have any tips, Puan Kelly?
Yeah, I would think that I think most of us are Muslims here. Okay? All of us are Muslims here.
I think most of us Muslim, 99%.
Okay. All right, because I think the Quran gives you the biggest tip ever, which is Iqra, read. Yeah, with great knowledge comes great responsibility. So You got to read a lot, not just about your industry, but about other industries as well. Because, as you know, in PR also, there are many aspects of PR. There's financial PR, there's a work of a publicist, which is also, like entertainment PR, political PR, which, by the way, is not propaganda, that's something else. And so you must broaden your mind, broaden your horizons, so you can anticipate and strategize accordingly. Yeah, so read. Also, do not underestimate pop trivia. Some people think pop trivia won't help. No, but it can, you see. Let's say you can even be the go-to person if for ideas. I mean, if let's say you're doing a campaign a campaign to raise the standard of English among B40 students. Yeah, so you can refer to that project perhaps as the Wingardium Leviosa project and sound like Harry Potter because the levitation spell raises, so you're also elevating, the standard of English among the students. So you sound clever like that lah. But and another example, maybe if you're doing defense classes for communities, underserved communities, you want them to be safe, they should know how to defend themselves. If somebody comes from the back and grabs your bag, for instance. So you tell them, boss, why don't we call it the Cobra Kai or the Eagle Fang campaign? So it's popular culture, and
right.
I can tell you that in Plus we did the same. We did a lot of road safety campaigns, but in order to get a buy-in, especially from motorcyclists, the motorcyclists kan budak-budak muda, they tend to go fast and furious. So we had to come up with a cool name. So the department came up with Gempa. Gempa stands for, it's an acronym. It stands for Gerakan Motosikal Pencetus Amalan Keselamatan. So Gempa.
Gempa, betul-betul gempa lah pun.
So then you can do merchandise, you can do the logo, all reflecting that Gempa. Another, I think, successful campaign that we did for road safety was called the Malaysians Unite for Road Safety. In short, it was called MUFOS, Malaysians Unite for Road Safety. Okay. So the acronym is MUFOS, so that we can sound cool when we go around saying, "May the MUFOS be with you."
May the MUFOS be with you.
So,
very
like that,
I love your incorporation of how are you a big movie lover? If I ask.
I think my kids and I we watch movies all the time, so it rubs off.
Marathons.
Yes, and now since we're on the subject of movies, I don't know how many of you here have Netflix, but if you can get access to Netflix, try and watch Bowen. It's a Danish TV series. Borgen, Bowen. It means the castle, but it's actually about it's a political drama basically about the first. She's not the first, but about a woman, Danish prime minister, and the trials and tribulations she goes through. But she has a PR person next to her to advise her. So this is very good for all of you to see how is it done, in the high stakes.
In Danish. Like and in
Danish, but they have subtitles,
Of course.
Try to see, Born.
This movie, this movie is like sounds a bit like you, Puan Kelly. Danish PR practitioner.
Yes. I wish I could be in that high stakes environment too, but no. Okay.
It's all right. Okay.
And then my next tip is, of course, to improve your writing skills. I heard one of the earlier speakers talked about how you have to be cheerier always because PR is fun. Well, I beg to differ a little bit because, if PR is not all fun and games, maybe 20%, but the 80% that goes on behind the scenes is all hard work. You have to do a lot of writing, you have to do the writing for the planning, the execution. You have to be writing speeches. You have to be doing press releases, social media postings, and you have to answer complaints. And answering complaints is an art by itself. You can't just answer like that. You have to be sensitive, and you have to not elevate the situation. Yeah, not escalate or elevate the situation, but rather nip it in the bud if you can.
Neutralize.
Yes, you have to be doing publications, annual reports, campaigns that require board approval, and in order to to get the board approval, your words have to be persuasive enough. Yeah, in order to get your story told, and in order to get the boards to approve. So you
Right.
require that budget. So this budget is so big. So why? So you have to justify it. Yeah. So all this require good writing skills, which is why I would encourage you to, just keep on writing, keep on improving your writing skills. Thirdly, I would urge all of you to be good public speakers. Practice public speaking. Yeah. So the
Right.
more you practice, the better you become at it. The more comfortable you are. Always add humor to your public speaking, so that you don't be seen as a bore, typical. You have to stand out all the time. So don't be afraid to volunteer at your company's annual dinner, at your sports event, whatever it is, prize giving ceremony. Just volunteer. The more you do it, the better it becomes. And like I said, always have a sense of humor. And when you inject humor, even in your boss's speech, that will help to make him look more humane,
Right. More accepted by the public.
He may even sound clever, sound witty if you add in a few quotes from Shakespeare. So, or anything, as long as there are quotations and some humor involved. And I would suggest, if there is a Toastmasters club near where you are, to join the Toastmasters club. It's good for the social interaction, as well as for honing your public speaking skills. In the Toastmasters club, how many are Toastmasters here? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Toastmasters.
Yeah, you don't just go to the club and you toast. Hey, hail to our health. No, they actually have a structure. So there will be someone who have to play the role of the R counter, for instance. The R counter, when somebody is making a speech, he will count the number of repetitions when you say okay. So those are the R counters. So every time you say that, he will put 1, 2, 3. At the end of the time, each speaker will be told how much R's, okays, la that you have done. And usually, well, in my Toastmasters club, we used to say, okay, now you owe us 50 cents.
each you will like, okay.
Yes.
Other than
the Toastmasters club, there are roles played by everyone. And at the beginning of it, there will be what you call the ice-breaking session. Is usually a 2-minute impromptu speech. So they will just take a topic out of a hat. Let's say the color green. So you have to speak about the color green for 2 minutes or 1.5 minutes. So it's good practice. And there is there's an actual manual that will help you get through the various levels and various types of speeches. There is the persuasive speech. There is the working with props. There is the political speech. Different types of speeches. So as you go up the level, you have to complete 10 speeches. So as you go through the manual, you complete 10 speeches, then you become certified Toastmasters. Yeah. Right. But then that's bronze. You have silver. You have gold. So
wow, ada rank juga.
Ada. And then you have competitions from all around the world. Yeah.
I see. Puan Kelly personally sekarang dah rank kat mana, like how
I am Toastmasters bronze. I did not go to the gold because didn't have time. Yeah.
So, focus AFS.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so apart from those 3 skills, coming back to your question, I would also give some behavioral tips. I would suggest that perhaps 3. The first one maybe is to always be punctual. Yeah, either you arrive before time or on time.
Right.
So punctuality is important, even in our religion. Kan? It says that you have to be punctual. You have to keep your promise. Kalau you solat on time is better than waktu darurat dah red zone there. Kan? So you want to be punctual all the time. It instills discipline in you. and it is also a measure of you respecting the other person's time, not just your own. Okay, so punctuality is important. Secondly, I would say be professional in all your dealings. Yeah, PR doesn't mean just having buddy with the media no, because you don't want to be telling certain things to them either, but you need them for certain things to carry your message across. So you can be friendly but firm. Yeah, certain things you are not able to divulge to them. So be professional, even in your dressing, your grooming. Always look smart. It doesn't have to be what do you call it? That doesn't have to be Dolce and Gabbana type of clothes ke, boss, Hugo Boss ke, as long as you are well coordinated, you are
presentable, I would say.
Presentable, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. And lastly, I would say be a good listener. Because in PR, listening skills are very important. Not just what they are saying, but also the body language. That's also important. That also gives you clues. Yeah, they may say, "Oh, I'm fine," but then the body looks listless, so you know it's not. Oh, I like your project, but then you see them rolling their eyes, so it's opposite to what they're saying. So keep a lookout on all that. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So thank you very much, Puan Kelly. So, we're done with with my part asking the questions. Now it's the viewers' turns to ask the questions. We will open a Q&A session for our viewers to ask any question. But right before that, we are going to play a video, some of the videos that you guys can just sit back, relax. In the meantime, think about your question and enjoy. All right, welcome back, everyone. So that was a video about AFS, and the I love how much interculturally involved and engaged AFS is with other countries in the world. I think
Yes.
what Puan Kelly is advocating for is very good for us students. As you all know, you guys could always donate, help, and also volunteer, be a
Yes.
part of AFS. And it was a very good video. Thank you very much, Puan Kelly, for your sharing.
Yes, welcome.
Yes. So now we will proceed with Q&A session. Let's start with our first participant. Our first participant can explain his name and your class?
Hi, and Assalamualaikum. My name is Adam
Salam.
Chowki from the class MC1003A. And first of all, thank you to AQMAL and Puan KALILAH for having me. And okay, my question would be, uh, would you mind to describe a social media crisis you had and how did you handle it? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you, Puan KALILAH.
Social media crisis. I think for AFS, there was one. I think it was a student in Austria, I believe. You don't mind if it's not a local scenario, yeah? It's a AFS thing. So in his social media posting, he I think discredited Muslims or something. I can't recall, but it's bad for AFS. It's also not reflective of what AFS is all about. So here we are talking about inclusivity, diversity, and all that. So and peace and understanding. So we had to have the liaison person speak to the student, take down his post, which he eventually did after realizing what the AFS mission is all about. Some of them they just go, they think it's just about visiting another country, going to school, that's it. But there's a deeper reason to AFS, which is why now we guide all students through what we call the student journey, so that they are able to reflect, as they go through the first month, the second month of living in a new country. So all the feelings that they feel. So maybe this boy was frustrated because he's in a new environment, and he doesn't understand. So it could be a way of flashing out. So after understanding, guiding, he was able to realize, and it was taken down. Another one, I think, more to plus. There was several instances of crisis. I think, not crisis, but social media postings that were not favorable to plus. Some the one I can recall is I don't know whether this went around, but it was in WhatsApp, and later it jumped onto Facebook as well, about mineral water. The plus mineral water is actually from a cemetery. The apparently the well where we get our water from is next to a cemetery, and therefore you are drinking water
from
that's
the cemetery.
pure lah, itu ini macam-macam. So this one comes out every 3 years. The same thing will come out again. We had already debunked it, but it came up again and again. So this time what we do is we actually took shot of the location. Here's the cemetery, here's the hills. So the cemetery is on this side, and then it's separated by paddy fields, and then on the other side only is where the wells are. So basically we're saying that that there is no harm at all. The cemetery is way over there, and the water source is way over here. So it's basically just to explain, and to sometimes you need to visualize it as well. Provide the visuals or the video just to show that this is it. Yeah. So
because the people are actually there to know what is happening, right?
Yeah. So for social media, it's like that. But certain things you must not overreact. Yeah. Kalau it happens in social media, somebody make a posting, you wait first. You don't overreact. And just because it's maybe talking bad about your management, or maybe talking bad about your operations, you want to immediately jump in and defend, your position. But no, you wait first for the feedback or the outcry from others. Sometimes it's just one or two, and sometimes people among the comments themselves will correct each other. So you did not give an official statement to jump in. Yeah, so patience is another thing.
Patience is virtue also, right? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Ponchelis, to answer the Adam's question just now. So,
Thank you, Adam.
all right. So we'll move on to the next question.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
My name is Muhammad Iqbal Haras from class 3C. I would like to ask a question to Puan Kelly. As we are understanding, now our country had been facing COVID-19. So AFS Foundation had to change their method from physically to virtually. So what the difference? So what the difference between managing program in virtually and physically? So that's all my question.
Okay, so once a student applies to go on a program, we find a match for the host family. Usually when you do the physical exchanges, let's say a student from Denmark wants to come to Malaysia, and she is from the rural area, so we match with a host family in a city setting. But if she's from the city, we match it with a rural family. Yeah, so because we want to try and give as many different experiences as possible. So for the virtual exchange, it's the same thing. We match with a family here, and the virtual exchange is basically you introduce yourself to that family, so they meet all the family members online, and then they have certain hours where they say, okay, today we're going to teach you how to prepare a Malaysian meal. This is our typical Malaysian meal. So they show the Malaysian meal, and then another time maybe they show about our traditional wear and our festivals. If there was a festival, like yesterday it was Pongal, Hari Pongal, so maybe we could have shown them what Pongal is and go through it by showing the video, you know. So these are the virtual exchanges that we mean. So after the borders are open again, the student can come over and have that actual experience with the family. But now the student is equipped with at least some basic knowledge. But of course, there's nothing like actually going through the living experience of going to school, meeting friends.
Pre-online experience, basically.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we meant. Even for classroom exchanges, China started the first, AFS China started the classroom exchanges, and one school in Johor Bahru did that with them. Also, another school in Paraguay and another school in India, I think, so different time zones. But they connected, and the students from Malaysia, will show them this is our uniform. So, and the Chinese, even though they don't understand, but it's basically through,
through visual.
Yeah, through visual, so it's easier to understand. And preparing food, so they learn about Malaysian food, we learn about how to prepare Chinese food, and then they actually the Chinese will have to do the Malaysian meals. In a month's time, they say, okay, this is how we did it. This is our nasi goreng, this is our nasi lemak.
Ini hasil dia.
Yeah,
Jadi ke
and
tak
then the
jadi?
students here do the same thing. Yeah.
Right, correct,
So
correct.
that's how they are exposed to intercultural, different intercultural facets. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Okay. Thank you, Poncheli. Thank you to Iqbal also for answering asking the question. Next, we'll present our third participant.
Nur Alia Diba.
Yep.
Okay. Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Alia Diba binti Faridullah, and I'm from class. So I was wondering if you can suggest us some skills that we might need to convey our client's message and give reassurance to the public if a crisis were to occur. Thank you.
Sorry, tadi break up, tak apa dengar. Can you say again? Your question again, please.
Okay. So I was wondering if you can suggest us some.
Audio is not
Is it okay?
very intermittent. Kejap dengar, kejap tak dengar.
Oh, mine.
Okay, Alia, you can try again.
Hello.
Or maybe
Yep.
you can type it on the
So
comments.
I was. I'm sorry, what?
Maybe you can type it on the comments section, your question. Now you're freezing. You have froze. Your picture has froze. So we can't see you.
Okay. I got the question here. All right. So
Okay.
from this is Alia Adiba's question. Looks like she's having some technical difficulties. It's all right. I'll ask the question for her. She
Okay.
said, I was wondering if you can suggest us some skills that we might need to convey our client's message and give reassurance to the public if a crisis were to occur.
Okay. I'll have to draw upon my past experience when we had that big rock fall. You know, there was a big rock fall in Bukit Lanjan, remember? I think it was on the first day of Hari Raya. So everybody was not around, very skeleton staff, operational staff were around, and then that rock fall happened around 7:13 in the morning, Raya morning. So huge rock fall. It closed the highway, and there was no way vehicles can pass through that section of the highway. So it crippled transportation lah. So the skills, like I said just now, the writing is important, and you have to also convince your management. There is an action plan. Any good organization would have a good PR crisis management plan. Yeah? So when things like that happen, you activate it. You know who's in charge. You have to set up a communication center. You have to contact your number one, number two, and who is supposed to be the spokesperson. That should be only just one spokesperson. And you have press conferences in the morning at 10 and maybe again at 5, you know, when there's more information that becomes available to you. But the first information must come out within 1 or 2 hours. But now with social media, it's got to be even faster. Yeah. So again, writing skills is one of the most important thing. And you have to sit down with your bosses to craft the release. Yeah. This was during the time when social media was not very apparent, but now it is. So if one disaster happens, you have a lot of so-called reporters, you know, with their camera phones, and then they make their own comments, they make their own, they arrive at their own
conclusions, deductions.
Conclusions, yes. So you cannot firefight. There's too many of that. So what you have to do is just get whatever information is available first. It may be very sketchy, but at least there's something coming out from you officially, from your organization officially. Try and do this within the first or second hour. Yeah. So you don't have much information, but you know that the rock fall happened at 7:13 in the morning. There was a skeleton crew there. Everybody got out in time. No fatalities. Keluarkan itu dulu. That information first. Yeah, and then later, as you know, as you meet more people, your staff tell you things. So there's more things to be told because
more information.
More information, and your investors are also listening in. They want to know, will this affect, my investments? Your shareholders want to know. So that's why you have to get information out. And as I said, the writing skills is the most important. And you have to work closely with your top management. Yeah, you have to advise them not to react. And when the boss is speaking, he's the official spokesperson. So before he goes on camera, make sure he has the bullet points and tell him to stay on track. In PR, we have what we call SOCO, kan? Single overriding communications objective. So the media may try to ask different kind of questions. So what does this mean? Will toll be a factor? Will you not collect toll at this? Semua tu you do not address. You just address what's about the incident saja. So that's why we say only one communication message, and you stay on track. So you have to tell your boss, be firm. I'm sorry, I'm not answering that for the moment. We just concentrate on this. Similar with other events as well, when you have a nice launching event, for instance, but at the same time, because you are, like plus in the tolling industry, you have a lot of reporters. You just call the media, all of them will turn up. So, but your launch event too doesn't get much coverage. They want to know more about the political side or the will toll rates go up, so you have to stay on track and say, no, this is about the event, just report on the event. So yeah.
Right. All right.
So you have to give
Okay.
the briefing to your boss. The briefing to your boss also includes what he should wear, okay?
From from head to toe, right?
Yeah, the proper tie ke, maybe not wear a tie ke when it's outdoors, that sort of thing. So,
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Puan Kelly. Thank you and also thank you to Alia for the question. Okay, so I see we have a few questions here in the chat box. What about we pick a few questions here from our chat box and we can answer some of them?
sure.
All right, so this is from Nur Shazrina. Hi, Puan Kelly. About global competence certification, can we as students apply for it, and how would it help us in our career?
Yes, thank you for that question, because I wanted to do some, commercial break on global competence certificate. Yes. Right now we have a minimum of 20 first. The requirement is 20. The cohort must be 20 before we can do a session on global competence. That's why when we approached MOE and we had a sponsor, MCIS, to sponsor 100 educators, that was more than our requirement. So we're very happy about it. So for students, you may also apply if there's 20 of you. But I believe in March this year, we're going to open a global competence certificate to the public. So as soon as there's 20, we can start one class, so to speak. Yeah. So this global competence certificate is important. It will look good on your resume as well, because employers now look for employability, and when you have global attached to it, it gives you even more credence and more credibility. So why we say it is important, because if you look today, there are many issues, global issues that we all share. The pandemic is one, poverty is one, climate change is another. So all these are important issues that you must be able to find solutions to in the global as well as in the local context. So we want people who are able to to employ the right communication tools, to tackle these issues, and who are willing to be change makers and willingness to take action, because this is a global issue. So you are aware of your role in the world and how you can help impact. So that's why global competence is very relevant in today's world now, as more and more countries, as we become a global village. It's ironic that more and more countries are looking inwards, kan? Macam just before borders were closed, I think it was Hungary did not want to take in refugees who were fleeing from a war-torn country and all that. So, and then you have America, make America great again. So they want to make America first, don't bother with the rest of the world. So these are issues that are complicated. They require some understanding lah of the global as well as the local context. Yeah. So, and you require the global competency, the knowledge, in order to communicate effectively. So
okay.
I think it will help all of you if you take this course.
Yes, I'm sure it will, Puan Kelly. So I hope all of you took note that watch out for March, where it might open up, right, Puan Kelly? March.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So
and
I hope
it's
everyone jot this
it's
down.
very, very affordable. Don't worry. I'm sure all of you can afford it. Not expensive at all. Or you can get your university. Your university can take up. Maybe they say, okay, let's have GCC for all of you, and they actually sponsor. So you have to tell your management or your VC that this is something good for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that could be suggested or talked about probably in the Student Representative Council of UiTM. I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please do. We shall await the cohort from UiTM.
Nanti kita jumpa balik Puan Kelly.
Yes, we must.
Okay, all right. Okay, so next we'll pick another question from the chat box. Okay, this one from Sir Azrael. Puan Kelly, do you remember the issues on social media during the implementation of 100% ETC? So Puan Kelly, silakan.
Maybe Azrael, you can remind me, because quite some time ago. Yeah, there will, of course, whenever there's change, there will definitely be resistance. So people will say, why you think my money is not good enough? Cash is not good enough. You have to go electronic all the way, 100%. You should give us options. Not all of us have, the cards, and we don't need the cards because we don't travel that much, that sort of thing. So, basically, when this kind of things happen, it's education. You have to give them the awareness, the education, and why it will make things easier in the long run. You don't have to have cash in your wallet, so the risk of losing money or having your wallet robbed or dropped somewhere is not there anymore. So it's actually making it easy. And right now also the government is encouraging e-wallet, kan? So it only makes sense lah. But in the beginning there was definitely resistance to the 100% ETC.
So how do you actually neutralize the negative sentiment on social media when this occurred?
You have to just bombard them with the information and get influencers to help you as well. There are some bloggers, there are some now you have vloggers as well. They can say how easy it is, when you go through toll plazas without having to queue up, without having to look for loose change. And then for the fleets, the fleets of buses, the lorries and the vehicles, we go directly to their management, to tell them how this will benefit them in the long run. There will not be any fraud anymore, because in the early days there used to be fraud lah. They say they use the highway, so they claim the tolls, but how they went through the back lanes. So all these things can happen. So we are telling them that it is better for you, for your operations, for efficiency, for your financial accounting and all this, to go ETC. So it was very easy actually to persuade them. It is the general public that we had some issues with.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Puan Kelly. All right. Okay. Thank you so much for answering the question. Thank you, Sir Azrael. All right. So let's move on to our last and final question for the day. All right. This is from Aisha Nurina binti Ismail. Other than volunteering, any other ways to explore PR?
You mean volunteering with AFS? I would suppose because AFS is a voluntary organization, so we are volunteer based. The host families are not paid, to host the students, but there is some allowance lah whenever they do events and potluck dinners and all that. So I don't understand how other ways to explore PR. In AFS, it's volunteering is definitely our core business. So you can volunteer as a liaison person if you have the proper training. You can volunteer as a host family or host brother or sister. And how you can weave in PR in this is through word of mouth, because PR, as opposed to advertising, you actually pay dollars and cents to get your message out there. PR, you use your PR skills, and to persuade media and to get them to have your story out there. So, but I think now with social media, it's even easier. You can do it yourselves. There's so many ways through YouTube and through other social media platforms without having to go through a professional advertising agency, I would say. But again, you employ your PR skills in order to tell your story in a very good way that will be able to capture the imagination, that will be able to capture the attention of people out there. Yeah, because social media, you're bombarded by so many information every day, every minute, every second. I think. So it's how you position yourselves away from the pack.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Puan Kelly, for answering the question. I'm
Most
sure
welcome.
everybody is excited to ask more and more questions, but unfortunately, we have actually come to the end of our sharing session for today. This is the last but not least. The attendance for all the students who are here today will be in the chat box very soon enough. So please take a look out. And I would like to give my utmost appreciation to Puan Kelly for coming here today, spending time with us. And
It's my
yeah,
pleasure. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I hope a lot of you now know what AFS is about and will be
yes.
able to involved in our activities, in our events, and become volunteers yourselves.
Mm.
Okay.
Thank you, Puan Kelly. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for having here today. All right, so I hope everyone is alert in the chat about the attendance once again. Puan Kelly, do you have any last words? Anything you would like to say to us UiTM Rembau students?
Well, maybe you all can help put pressure on, I don't know, the people that are in the corridors of power, perhaps, to give you all a gap year, because we have what is called an 18 plus program as well. So it's for students such as yourselves, before you go out into the world, you start your careers, you go abroad to do community-based projects. We have from France, from European countries, and from Latin America to come to Malaysia to do community programs here. So they stay with host families, or they stay with the organizations who provide room and board, and then they do the community service work, like in an orphanage or in a in what do you call it? Sometimes a home for the aged or home for the blind. So they do this kind of community work. So for Malaysians to go abroad and do this, belum lagi ada. So we are hoping that the government will allow all of you to do that, and then you can come to AFS and we will arrange this for you.
Yes, inshallah. I hope everyone is interested to actually take NGO or like voluntary work as part of character development and making AFS part of that journey.
Yes.
Inshallah.
Oh, one more thing. I was with Mercy Malaysia for a while, only 3 months, but that's also another NGO that you may volunteer for. No, not volunteer. You can also work with them because they do have salaried staff, and it's also a
Right.
good one to have the same objectives. Where they're helping others. It's a humanitarian aid organization. So I must do my bit for Mercy Malaysia as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all of you.
Thank you,
Thank you for your
Puan Kelly.
question.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right, so this is the end of the session, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you to Puan Kelly. Until next time, guys. See you in UiTM Rembau. Bye.
Bye.
Puan Kelly, yeah, we would like to ask you to stay for a quick photo session.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, all right. So thank you everyone who has come and watched our sharing session for today. This has been a very great learning insight with Puan Kelly. I'm sure all of you gained a lot of knowledge. All right, thank you.